There are, of course, multiple different Sabrina the Teenage Witch intellectual properties, the movie and TV show from 1996, the animated series Plural, and the Netflix series. Most memorable characters are probably those from the 1996 series, especially Salem, who has been memeified in more recent history. But there was also a rotating cast that played different supporting characters in the Sabrina multiverse. This includes several different characters who were portrayed as Sabrina's so-called best friend, so let's dig into the friendship lore of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Hi, I'm Melody. If you're new here, go ahead and click that subscribe button and I hope that you stick around. The character of Sabrina first appeared in Archie's Madhouse number 22 in 1962. She then mostly appeared in mini comics within the Little Archie comics series under the name Sabrina, that cute little witch. After some time in Archie's comic book land, Sabrina finally got her own cartoon show on CBS in 1970.
But with Sabrina, you're never sure if you're not seeing double. 'Cause she's Sabrina, Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Which was a spin-off of the Archie Comedy Hour, and in 1971, Sabrina finally got her own individual comic book series. The basic premise of Sabrina, if you've never been exposed to her story before, is that she is a teenage witch who lives with her two aunts and the aforementioned cat, Salem, in a town called Greendale, which is near Archie's hometown of Riverdale. Salem was turned into a cat for attempting to overtake the world and was sentenced to life with the Spellmans. Sabrina attempts to live a normal teenage life while also hiding the fact that she is a witch. Although in a lot of the comics, many other characters seem to know that she is a witch and they just don't care.
How I wonder who... Hello, Sabrina.
Hello, Mr. Weatherby.
I didn't see that. I did not see that.
So this was something about her character that was changed along the way, along with many other changes that were made. Sabrina also often has to learn the life lessons through using and often abusing her magic. Sabrina's main friends in the comics are a ragtag group of mortals, witches, monsters, and ghosts. Besides the Archie gang, Sabrina has her mortal boyfriend, Harvey Kinkle, a character who has been present in the Sabrina stories since the beginning. Over the years, Sabrina gained and lost a number of mortal and non-mortal friends. These include Rosalind, an enemy turned friend and fellow witch, Francine, a female Frankenstein character, Clara Glass, an invisible girl, Milton, and Ida, a character with a giant eye for her head. Ida was mostly used for visual gags in Betty and Veronica comics. Ida actually predates Sabrina by a few years, but she was also then turned into a best friend character for Sabrina in the 90s, along with Rosalind in the Gravestone Heights storylines. Besides the main comic series and cartoon show, there were also various one-shot comics that featured or starred Sabrina, all revolving around the Archie gang. From 2004 to 2009, Sabrina Comics got a manga reimagining and a new storyline. In this series, Sabrina continues to learn how to be a witch and defeat the baddies called the Four Blades, a kind of witch gang. In this series, Sabrina has a new best friend called Landra de Silva, a fellow witch. While they go to different schools, Landra and Sabrina remain good friends throughout the manga series. I wish the same could be said for Sabrina's other friends that appear in other intellectual properties. Even though it is my favorite, the main beef that I have with the original live-action series and movie is that they kept changing Sabrina's best friend. While I can understand doing this for a comic book series that was published on and off for well over 50 years, I really don't understand changing the main characters of the series that was only on TV for 7. In this iteration of Sabrina, played by Melissa Joan Hart and produced by her and her mother, Sabrina and her aunt, and Salem of course, live in the fictional town of Westbridge, Massachusetts. Changes from the comics and the original cartoon are numerous, mostly to keep up with the times, so to speak. The other Archie comics cast members are pretty much completely forgotten about, and Sabrina is essentially an orphan. Her mortal mom can't visit her or she'll be turned into a ball of wax, a law which was made by the ruling group of witches called the Witches' Council, and her dad is stuck in a book. So Sabrina lives with her aunts in the mortal realm, and they all have to hide the fact that they are witches. While Salem can talk in this series, he has to hide that fact too, even though he can't use magic. Something which he could do in the original comic series as well, even though it was in thought bubbles. As such, Sabrina can't tell any of her friends that she is a witch, and this is the main plot device used to cause conflict throughout the movie and series. The movie and series are pretty similar though, so I'm just going to kind of combine them in this part. In the movie, Sabrina's best friend was played by Michelle Boudon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, it's French. A Canadian actress who reprised her role, though under a different name, in the TV series. In the movie, her character was called Marnie, but in the show, her name is Jenny Kelly, an Irish-American feminist vegetarian who latches on to Sabrina in the series because they are both deemed as outcasts by the popular girl Libby Chesler, who is played by Jenna Lee Green. Harvey, Sabrina's boyfriend, was also played by a different actor in the movie than the show, an actor named Tobias Meller. But Sabrina also had another love interest in the movie, Seth, who was played by a little-known actor at the time named Ryan Reynolds. Jenny was a very strong character to play opposite of Sabrina's more insecure ways. Honestly, I kind of looked up to Jenny during the first season. She was more of the type of girl I wanted to be at the time as a 7-year-old because she was almost proud of being different and seemed to be more confident than Sabrina was. Some of Jenny's most notable parts in the series are of her standing up for her beliefs and not giving in to peer pressure. She also stands up to Libby Chesler, the mean girl, who often bullies her and Sabrina. Her most notable episodes showcase her independent attitude. For example, on a class trip to a reenactment town in Salem, Sabrina has to conceal her real witchiness so she doesn't accidentally get accused of being a witch. This ends up happening anyways, her being accused of being a witch, and she has to defend herself against Libby and her other classmates as they learn what life was like in 17th century Salem, Massachusetts. Jenny loves the cosplay aspect of the town and really gets into character, even admitting that she was alone with a boy despite her getting accused of witchcraft for it. Jenny, however, realizes that the accusation is fake and never assumes Sabrina is a real witch like Sabrina was afraid of, but instead plays along and enjoys the time in the town. I really like Jenny's attitude here and how she revels in the reenactment. She really is just an oddball nerd at heart. Then in the episode Jenny's Non-Dream, when Jenny rightfully asks why she has never been inside Sabrina's house, Sabrina invites her for a sleepover. The Spellmans struggle to conceal the magic in the house from Jenny with great difficulty, but Jenny accidentally stumbles into the other realm, which is the name for the magical world, through the Spellman's linen closet of all places. Jenny then gets turned into a grasshopper and is held captive by Drell, the head of the Witches' Council. Sabrina and her aunts are able to change her back and take her home because of a loophole in witch law by convincing her that her trip to the other realm was just a dream. So why did Jenny disappear? Melissa Joan Hart has said that characters left the show for various reasons such as backstage drama, audience reaction, and arguments over payments for actors and character creators. While the real reason for Jenny's departure has never been revealed, I wonder if it was because of the same reasons why I found her character so appealing. She was a stronger character morally than Sabrina and had a stronger sense of self. Maybe other people in the audience thought the same. For her part, Michelle Boudon acted in other things after Sabrina, such as The Outer Limits, Da Vinci's Inquest, and Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed. It looks like she stopped acting around 2005 and probably went on to live a quiet and peaceful life, despite her Sabrina the Teenage Witch fame. In Season 2, Westbridge High gains a new student named Valerie Burkhead, played by Lindsay Sloan. Valerie is pretty much the opposite of Jenny. She is very insecure and dies to fit in with Libby and the other popular girls, even forcing Sabrina at one point to try out for the cheerleading squad with her. Valerie is Sabrina's best friend from Season 2, Episode 1 through the end of Season 3, and while she gets more screen time than Jenny, she is considerably less likable than Jenny or Sabrina, probably for the reason I mentioned earlier, so that audience wouldn't like her more than they like the main character of the series. Valerie's self-esteem does slightly improve over the course of the show, and she even gets to learn that Sabrina is a witch at one point, if only for a day. I think Lindsay Sloan did an excellent job portraying that insecure high school girl who needs a more confident friend to lean on, but I still just don't like her character as much as I did Jenny's. So like I mentioned, in Season 2, Episode 10, Sabrina gets to tell her friends that she is a witch for one day, Friday the 13th. The memories of non-witches then get wiped at midnight. She risks telling Valerie, who then tells Harvey and then gets overheard by Libby. While Valerie and Harvey are cool with the fact and even have fun indulging in Sabrina's magic, Valerie is put in the position of turning Sabrina over to Libby and her angry mob in return for popularity. And the fact that this even crosses her mind to do is just like, what kind of friend even are you, Valerie? Then in episode 20 of season 2, Sabrina and Valerie pool their money together to buy Valerie's grandma's car. This results in the two fighting over the car and arguing about everything from when someone gets to use it to when someone has to clean it. This results in Sabrina buying her own car from the other realm, which then comes with its own set of problems. The girls eventually do make up, but geez, I just don't think that they have the same kind of chemistry that Sabrina and Jenny did. Valerie's character eventually gets written off after season 3, with her calling Sabrina in episode 1 of season 4 to tell her that she's actually decided to move to Alaska, a place I used to actually live in. While Valerie was originally supposed to move in with Sabrina and her aunts during their senior year at Westbridge High, she decides to move to Alaska with her family because she just can't leave them, and communicates with Sabrina via email over the course of a few months. Valerie then slowly loses contact with Sabrina, proving that maybe she wasn't that good of a friend to begin with. Valerie was confirmed to have been written off to make room for the new characters like Brad, Harvey's friend and witch hunter who moves back to town, and Dreama, a younger witch that Sabrina has to tutor. I feel like season 4 is honestly when the show started to go downhill, with serious changes happening once again once Sabrina goes off to college. In seasons 5 through 7, the college years, Sabrina is trying to make new friends, and even Harvey is gone for a while, though he eventually shows back up before he and Sabrina elope with each other at Sabrina's wedding to another man in the show's finale. Harvey was confirmed to have been written off the show temporarily in order to give the show a different look, as Sabrina was about to attend college. The decision was later rescinded, and Harvey appeared in 3 episodes of season 5, and then returned as a series regular in seasons 6 and 7. At college, of course, Sabrina gets roommates, Miles, Morgan, and Roxy. Miles is a nerd and a huge alien guy, and he actually comes close to discovering that Sabrina is a witch a few times because of all of his alien hunting technology. Morgan is kind of a stuck-up rich girl type, and Roxy is a loner, not like other girls type. They do eventually all become friends, and Sabrina, Morgan, and Roxy even all move in together into the Spellman's house in the last season. Sabrina doesn't really have a best friend throughout all these years, and her magic actually ends up causing her more trouble than it does for the people around her. I just kind of feel like the last 3 seasons of the show are just so heartless and rushed, like they didn't have that typical Sabrina charm that the early seasons did. Salem almost replaces Sabrina's friends by being the one she confides in the most about things, and he is the one who helps her realize she actually loves Harvey, who is the only one of her mortal friends who ends up keeping the knowledge that she is a witch. Instead of the other guy who she was going to marry, whose name I forgot because it really doesn't matter, they could have just skipped over season 5 through 7 altogether, done a time skip, and have Sabrina marry Harvey when they are older. Anyways, there are actually more Sabrina intellectual properties to discuss, believe it or not. In Sabrina, the animated series from 1999, Sabrina is depicted for the first time as a middle schooler. This series was released in the middle of the live-action TV series and first aired in September of 1999. Melissa Joan Hart returned and lent her voice to the aunts, Hilda and Zelda, and her real-life little sister Emily, who played her younger annoying cousin Amanda in the live-action series, came on as the voice of Sabrina. This time, the changes to Sabrina's friend group kind of make sense. She is in middle school and therefore has a different friend group. Her bestie in this series is a character named Chloe Flan, or Flan, the second black secondary character in the series, after the character of Dreama. Voiced by famous voice actor Cree Summer, Chloe is one of 2 characters in the series who knows Sabrina is a witch. The other is a new character, Sabrina's maternal mortal uncle, Quigley, who is loosely based off of Ambrose in the comic book series. Sabrina and Chloe use the magic cookie jar called the Spooky Jar. They do various preteen things like helping them fit into trendy clothes and turning Harvey into a superhero. But the lesson at the end of each episode, much like the live-action TV series, is usually that Sabrina doesn't need to use magic to solve her problems. I like the character of Chloe and her witty quips, and she keeps Sabrina grounded in the real world more often than not. I personally really liked this version of Sabrina and watched it as it aired when I was growing up. I liked how it also mixed in real mortal problems of the late 90s, early 2000s, just like the live action series did, and it was pretty popular with the target age group, which makes sense that they made a TV movie based on it, which was called Sabrina Friends Forever in 2002. Sabrina Friends Forever is of the same animation style as Sabrina the Animated Series, but has a slightly different plot. In this prequel movie, Sabrina turns 13 and receives her first wand from Enchantra, a character who appeared in the original comic book series and is the Queen of the Witches, and is the head of the Witches Council in every IP except the multiple live-action TV series, because who could turn down Penn and Teller as recurring guest stars? Then Sabrina attends the Witch Academy to learn the 3 principles of witchdom: to use magic wisely, be true to one's friends, and be true to oneself. Sabrina does decide to hide her half-witchiness and pretends to be a full witch to fit in with the popular witches. This actually causes her to bully a fellow half-witch named Nicole. After learning from this, Sabrina and Nicole actually become best friends and go on a quest to find a wish-granting tree. Sabrina wishes to be a full witch, but her wish backfires and causes Sabrina to actually take Nicole's half-witch side, and then Nicole becomes a full mortal and turns to stone. Sabrina learns again that friendship is actually important and offers to turn herself into stone too. This selfless act causes Enchantra to return both girls to their half-witch status, and a happy ending is had for everyone. I just wish that more of Sabrina's IPs focused on friendship like they did in this movie. In the 3D animated series Sabrina: Secrets of a Teenage Witch from 2013, the voice of Sabrina is played by Ashley Tisdale, and Sabrina is portrayed for the first time to be a witch princess, and she is due to one day rule the magical world as queen. This style of animation is kind of the same as that of the Barbie movies or early Monster High or Bratz, and Salem is actually an antagonistic character in this series, who is meant to make Sabrina's life in the mortal world unbearable so she will return to the magical realm. Sabrina's main friend in this series is a character called Veralupa, a werewolf-witch hybrid who gets along with Sabrina because they are both half-witches, a part of Sabrina's character in this series that is maintained from the original animation and the live action. Sabrina is more outgoing and popular in this series and often brings her knowledge of the mortal realm and popular human things to her time at the Magical Academy, with mixed results. Enchantra also returns as an antagonist for this series and is always scheming to get Sabrina to stay in the magical world so that she can drain Sabrina of her magical powers and remain queen of the magical realm. This series also brings back Sabrina's cousin Ambrose, although much younger, who also attends the same magical academy as Sabrina. Sabrina has yet another black friend in this version too, named Jessie. She has a lot of the same qualities as Chloe and knows that Sabrina is a witch even though she's immortal. I actually thought that this series was kind of cute, and it has that same kind of quirkiness as the Monster High movies, and Harvey actually gets turned into a werewolf in this series in the very first episode, and he remains as a werewolf throughout the series even though he doesn't know it, which kind of puts a fun twist on everything. Sabrina maintains her friendships through this series even though they do put a strain on her magic and her magical world, just like they do in all the other series. And last but not least, we have come to the bane of the Sabrina multiverse for me, which is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it's cool that they tried to do a darker version of Sabrina for once, but it just kind of loses the charm of the originals, and it eventually suffered from the same writing issues that the show Riverdale did. At least, the Sabrina and Archie gangs finally reunite in this series like they were in the original comics. The main premise for Sabrina in this show is pretty much the same as it always has been. Sabrina is a half-witch living with her aunts and cat Salem, but they also add in cousin Ambrose as a mentor for Sabrina. Instead of her talking to Salem, she'll talk to Ambrose about her problems. And Salem is actually a familiar and can't really talk, even though Salem and Sabrina do communicate in some way. This iteration is much darker than the previous ones, and is in the same vein as the Riverdale series, to which it was supposed to be a companion series. But because of all of the behind-the-scenes things, the production team eventually had to make it its own show. Sabrina still has to battle her enemies in this series while hiding from her mortal friends that she is a witch. However, the series overall struggles from writing issues and the interruption of the COVID-19 pandemic, which eventually put an end to production. A lot of people, myself included, agree that the ending definitely could have been a lot better. Sabrina's friends in this iteration include Harvey, of course, and new friends Roz or Rosalind, possibly a nod to her enemy turned bestie in the original comics, and Susie/Theo. Sabrina is back in her original hometown of Greendale in this series, hence the proximity to Archie's Riverdale. Pretty much everything else about Sabrina and her personality has changed though. She is smart, overly so compared to past iterations, and very confident. She knows she can be a powerful witch despite being half mortal, and her friends do help her to become that. The magic in this series is more based on the old superstitions of witches, like making deals with the devil to gain more power. Sabrina remains pretty protective and loyal to her friends throughout the series, despite fears that they will be harmed by her witchy ways or by the literal devil, aka the Dark Lord. But Sabrina is kind of a shitty friend in the beginning of the series, doing things like deliberately lying to her so-called friends and doubting them when they call on her for help. So at least that part is consistent. Roz, Harvey, and Theo last through the last season of this series at least. Roz is yet another black best friend, and she is also a seer and blessed with the gift of the cunning. It turns out that she is actually a witch too, so maybe it's more than just a nod to the original character of Rosalind from the comics. Theo is a trans guy who has his own run-ins with ghosts, demons, hobgoblins, and other creatures of the dark, and we do respect trans people on this channel, no matter how badly they're written. And Harvey himself is even from a family of witch hunters in this series, just like his friend Brad was in the 1996 series. But he mostly helps Sabrina as opposed to trying to hunt her. At the Magic Academy, because there's one in this series too, Sabrina makes friends with Warlock Nick Scratch, who she eventually dates after Harvey. She also meets Prudence and the Weird Sisters, who are named after the ones from Shakespeare. Prudence is more like the original Rosalind, an enemy who becomes, well, not a best friend, but more of just a frenemy. Of course, it also wouldn't be a Netflix series without an inappropriate relationship between a student and teacher. Sabrina is very close with her English teacher, Miss Wardwell, who gets possessed by the spirit of Lilith and then manipulates Sabrina to sign her name in the Devil's Book. Miss Wardwell is kind of the enchantra of this universe. She makes Sabrina think she is helping her, but ultimately betrays her to become the queen of hell this time. This series eventually becomes pretty meta with other similarities creeping in from the other old series. In one episode, a duplicate Sabrina, long story and trust me it doesn't matter to the overall plot, enters an alternate universe where her aunts are played by Caroline Rhea and Beth Broderick, the actors who played them in the 1996 live-action TV version. Nick Scratch also calls Harvey Farm Boy several times, a reference to the character of Roland the Troll from the 96 series who calls Harvey Farm Boy. Sabrina's hair also turns white after she gains her full magical powers, which is, of course, a reference to the character's white hair in the original comics. The general aesthetics of the show is also very 1960s, like the comics, even though it is set in modern times, I think. The show itself says it is modern times, but we see a laptop and a cell phone exactly once throughout the whole series. Harvey even has a poster of an Archie's Madhouse issue on his wall in Season 1, Episode 10, and while I couldn't make out if it was the one with the first appearance of Sabrina, I wouldn't put it past the set designers to include a detail like that. Sabrina does eventually get to tell her mortal friends that she's a witch in this series without any huge consequences or having to hide it later, so that's kind of nice. I just really wish the writing was better. For example, in one episode they basically turn Sabrina into Jesus, but she doesn't think to put a protection spell over the key witness in her cousin's execution. And why the fuck is there a random musical episode in the season 2 finale and other random episodes? If you're going to do a musical episode, just go all the way and commit. One thing I will give them, though, is that at the end of season 3, Sabrina does kind of learn her lesson about leaving her family and friends vulnerable and goes back in time to save them from pagan witches who want to take over the earth. But that kind of just goes out the window once again, and because the show is canceled, the ending is just awful. Instead of writing off any of her number of friends this time, though, Sabrina dies at the end, and her friends and enemies fade off into the void, some of them quite literally. They bury Sabrina in the cane pit after she dies, which in the first few seasons can resurrect the dead, but is never used for that purpose again in season 3 or 4. See what I mean about the writing? Could have been a big reason why it got canceled. So yeah, I'm just kind of disappointed in the general apathy towards Sabrina's friend characters. She's always more concerned with herself and her magic than with anyone else really, and is overall just kind of a selfish character. Of course, in real life I understand people lose friends, fights happen, people move, etc. But in Sabrina, we really only get kind of a character growth or any kind of explanations, mostly just with the character of Harvey. I also totally understand that stuff happened behind the scenes that we may never know about with actors or budgets, but the writing just could have been way better. They could have stayed with the original story and characters more, or they could have at the very least explained what happened with Jenny. Maybe something like, after she discovered the other realm in the closet, the council decided that she couldn't be friends with you anymore and erased her memory and made her family move. Instead, we just get absolutely no explanation of what happened to her. At least with Valerie, they wrote her in to move to a different state. Still a cop-out writing wise, but they probably didn't really have much other choice at that point. Also, I do get the main conflict of the character of Sabrina is that when you have to keep such a huge part of yourself a secret from everyone, it's kind of a no-brainer that you won't be able to be as good of friends with them. I guess that's why I like this series and episodes where Sabrina is allowed to let at least one of her mortal friends know she's a witch. It's just Sabrina, the character, cares more about herself and her on-again, off-again boyfriend Harvey, or Nick. One of the main plot points in every series where it happens is that Harvey breaks up with Sabrina after learning she's a witch. But her friends who get to learn this always support her, and yet the writers act like Sabrina's relationship with a boy is always the most important. I wish we could get a Sabrina IP where, like in the original comics, people know she's a witch, but it's all for fun. Something that is like the 1996 series, but that doesn't hinge all on her relationship with a boy. I think after all this, I'm just going to go back and watch the animated series because that's really the only one that puts friendship above everything else. The Sabrina intellectual property has just been worked over so many times. Things just keep changing so much from the original source material, and not many of them are good changes. This is just something that has been bothering me since at least the last 30 years, starting with the 1996 show, but I hope you had some fun with me going down memory lane and going over Sabrina's friendship lore. But let me know which Sabrina IP is your favorite down in the comments below. Which best friend do you like the best? Again, if you're new here, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. Click the like button as well. Share this around with your friends, family, whatever you want to do. And as always, don't forget to drink some water, take your medicine, and eat something today if you haven't done those 3 things yet. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye!